Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, good morning again. We will begin our agenda in a few minutes. The Leader of Government Business has a few comments that need to be made.
Thank you, Madam President. With the consent of the other side, in a sense, we go back for a short moment to communications by ministers. Firstly, I'd like to bring condolences on behalf of the late Cedric Saunders, who passed away recently. He was a giant in the Bahamian industry and in the insurance sector. He was a great personal friend to anyone who knew him. I came to know him, first of all, personally when I was chairman of the Free National Movement, and he was a distinguished member of our finance committee. But it went far beyond that. Every time I would go to pay my car insurance, insurance management, someone would tell Cedric Saunders, Carl Bettle in the building, and I would receive the summons to come upstairs. And I'd go and sit down in his office, and we would sit down and chat and swap stories. He was truly an engaging, warm, and loving person, a giant of a man. His loss is a tremendous loss to the Bahamas and to the insurance community. He was both ends of it. He had the insurance company and the insurance brokers and agents. He was truly a pioneer. And so on behalf of the Free National Movement, myself, my family, and myself, because I personally feel his loss, I want to bring condolences to his family on their moment of suffering, and may his soul and the soul of all of God's faithfully departed through the mercies rest in peace. Madam President, I now have to address another issue that is arising. We all know that there was the recent decision of the Court of Appeal by a 3-2 majority on the question of the right to citizenship. And I am now advised that persons are presenting themselves as of yesterday and even today at the Parliamentary Registration Department demanding the right to be registered to vote. This is my information. Let me say, as I said to the press yesterday, but this didn't make the remarks in the newspaper, but which hopefully, thankfully they did cover from the former Attorney General Sean McQueenie saying the same thing. I said that if we were to lose at the Privy Council, at that time, we would then be required to make changes to domestic law. In other words, nothing has changed as a result of the ruling, because the matter is still a matter of contest. And one of the things that is required is, of course, that we go to the Privy Council for the matter to be settled. But pending that, there is no change in Bahamian law, and there's no possibility of a change at least until September when the House meets again, and no likelihood that there will be any change at all without a definitive ruling from the Privy Council. If that ruling goes a certain way, we will have to deal with whatever the consequences are. But until that time, the matter is a contested issue, and we would urge all persons who would wish to have the benefits of a judgment before the matter is settled at law to hold off and await the final court's verdict on this matter, because the law has not changed. The TV can't hear me? Seen but not heard. We need to have the session heard. So I will have to withdraw. We suspend for 5 minutes, Madam President. I so move that we suspend for 5 minutes until they address the audio side of the presentation.
Okay.
It's on now? Okay, yes, it sounds better. Okay, Madam President, I must address, first of all, let me just say that my first remarks were to bring condolences, and it is in the records of the Senate on the passing of a giant, Mr. Cedric Saunders, a giant in the insurance industry, a giant in every way, and he was a personal friend of mine. And I, on behalf of the government and the people of the Bahamas, I express our sincere condolences on his passing and our wish that he might rest in peace, rise in glory through the mercies of God. And I say to his family, be comforted. We all loved Cedric. He was an eminently lovable, warm, and engaging person. Moving on, I must address the matter that has arisen. Apparently, I'm informed that as early as yesterday and certainly today, persons seeking to benefit from the ruling of the Supreme Court are presenting themselves at certainly the Parliamentary Registration Department and possibly at other areas such as the Passport Office, seeking to claim the benefits of full Bahamian status. Unfortunately, the matter is being appealed to the Privy Council and steps are being taken. The law is not settled. And as I explained to the press yesterday, although it was not covered by the written newspapers, I affirmatively stated that it would only be in the event of an adverse ruling from the Privy Council that any changes to Bahamian law would be necessary. At this point, there is and has been no change to Bahamian law. So, for example, one cannot prove paternity for the purpose of claiming citizenship based on the Status of Children's Act, because the Status of Children's Act specifically states that it is not to be used in determining any question of citizenship. That is the law of the Bahamas, and it has not changed. And so I would advise all those persons who are seeking to avail themselves of the ruling of the Court of Appeal to be patient. Let us await the full determination of the highest court in the land to which the matter is now being referred, and we will see what the final statement as to what Bahamian constitutional law is on this matter will be when the Privy Council issues its ruling. Until that time, I advise calm and patience. And I also advise all arms of the government that the law affecting citizenship for persons born out of wedlock to a Bahamian man has not changed, because the Status of Children's Act still required, is not to be used and cannot be used for the purpose of determining a right to citizenship. If the Privy Council were to rule in favor of the applicants, being the government of the Bahamas, there would be no change to the law. If they were to rule otherwise, at that point, there would have to be changes in domestic law. Those changes have not yet been made, and so please, I advise all government agencies to obey the Bahamian law in this matter. Thank you.
Yes. The chair recognizes Senator Mitchell.
So there is no, because my understanding of the Court of Appeal Act is once the Court of Appeal pronounces that is actually the law of the Bahamas until the government takes some step to stay.
We're taking that step, and we're doing all of that.
Right.
We're doing all of that.
Right.
Yes, we're doing all of that.
Okay, so strictly speaking, the law changed when the Court of Appeal ruled.
Unfortunately, the statute law has not changed. And the issue is there's an entitlement. That's an entitlement to apply, or you're entitled at birth, according to the Court of Appeal's ruling, but the law has not changed. We have not yet changed the statute law of the Bahamas, and that law will continue to prevail until such time as the law is clarified. We are, on the Attorney General's office side, taking steps right now to, A, apply for a stay, and also make our application to the Privy Council. These things have to be done in a measured way and in a lawful way, and we are taking steps to do them on the basis of urgency. Thank you.
I understand that, but as I thought the case was about Article 6.
I know, I
and
said
the interpretation of parent.
automatic.
Right. So once the court pronounces that parent means either parent, the law changes because the Court of Appeal binds every other court.
But how do you prove that someone is a parent? Through if they are male, it is through the DNA test.
Absolutely.
And under the Status of Children's Act, that cannot be used for the purposes of citizenship at this time.
But with respect, the Status of Children's Act would not apply because as soon as the court pronounces, unless there's a stay, it changes automatically. So
As I said, that the Attorney General's office
down to the passport office says, "Give me my passport." Until you get a stay, he's a Bahamian citizen.
we are applying for a stay.
So I'm saying you
Thank
need to do that with alacrity because the person can stand on the law right now and say, Court of Appeal has ruled, I'm a citizen,
Well,
it
they
changes
don't do that.
automatically, and, all you need is the fellow from Grand Bahama to rush up the road and say, you're a citizen. So I say, act quickly if that's what you mean to do. Do it, and do it quickly.
I understand. The law has not changed.
With respect, the law has changed.
Well, we're not going to agree on this, so let us move on. We understand the effect of the ruling, and we are taking
Getting a
steps
stay.
to apply for a stay. We may not be granted a stay.
Right.
You understand that
In
too?
which case, right, in which case, the person is entitled to go and get his certificate.
No.
Yes, he is.
When the Court of Appeal makes that ruling, then we will see what happens, all right?
Once the court says Article 6 has changed the law, and parent means parent, whether married or otherwise, the law has changed. And the person can go to the passport office and get his passport. So you need to get a stay. You have to get a stay. Great. I just want to make that clear, though. That's all.
Make it clear that we're well aware that we need to apply for a stay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue where we left off yesterday when the Senate suspended. We had a motion moved and seconded, and the motion was on the following bill. A bill for an act for the appropriations of diverse sums of money for and towards defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue accounts and for the financial year commencing 1st of July 2021 and ending 30th of June 2022. This bill, along with a compendium of bills, is what we have moved and seconded for its second reading and committee as many. The chair recognizes Senator Dalva.
Just on a procedural point, Senator Darville's indicated to me, I just need confirmation that the leader opposite has surrendered his 2 hours to Senator Darville,
Yes.
who will speak for 2 hours, and the leader opposite will have 1 hour.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, we good.
Did indicate that. Thank you, sir. You may
Thank you
proceed.
so much. Thank you so much, AG. And I was so pleased that you clarify this issue as it relates to citizenship, because we are getting calls, and I'm glad that it has been sorted out to this point. In Romans chapter 12, verse 2, the Bible says...
Sorry, just to clarify, you have 90 minutes, not 2 hours. 2 hours. Okay. 1.5.
So be it. So be it. Yes. Thank you so much, AJ. And thanks for clarifying the issue as it relates to what is now in the paper and in the public domain as it relates to citizenship. In Romans chapter 12, verse 2, the Bible says, "Do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Madam President, challenges facing... Well, first of all, Madam President, here's a little bit warm. I'm asking, with no disrespect to you, for me to at least open my jacket.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Madam President, challenges facing the Bahamas today are tremendous. And the manner in which we navigate through these turbulent waters will have serious implications for many years to come. What we need is God's guidance and the boldness to make the tough decisions necessary to put our country back on the road to economic recovery and social reform. A feel-good budget, along with some promises that are unattainable in this administration's final hours in office, would be the last thing any sober government would put as its agenda. But this administration refused to see further than their political ambitions and have turned a blind eye to what must be done today in order to secure our country's economic position in the future. Madam President, this morning I thank God for health and strength, and for once again for the ability to stand on my feet in this honorable place to make my contribution to this outgoing administration final budget. Wow. Time has really flew by like the wind. It seems like yesterday that the speech from the throne was read in the square. And leader, I remember you turned to me and said, stay focused. We only have 260 weeks away from the general election. Time really flies because I think we have less than 12 months. Madam President, the last 4 years has not been easy for me, but I believe 2022 was difficult for all of us. And from the looks at what the World Bank is saying about the Bahamas economy, we better brace ourselves for a rough ride in the next 12 months. 2021. After listening to all of the self-congratulatory speeches by many members opposite, particularly in the other place, Minister of State and Senator Darius piggyback, but I must give him credit because it was not as bad. I must admit that I'm saddened because it really makes me wonder whether this government truly understands its role and purpose. Madam President, we must remind this F&M administration that they were elected by the people to do what is in the best interest of the people in both good and bad times. That means in times of hardship, the government must devise ways
Sorry,
to
Honourable
ease the
Senator.
burden.
Sorry, Honourable Senator. I'm advised by your leader on the other side, the leader opposite, that he is being informed that there remain some problems with the audio and visual transmission. There's a Cable Bahamas issue, so they may not be able to correct it. And you'll recall that it caused the House to have to do certain things. We don't have that liberty, having regard to the time. If it's not something that can be fixed in 5, 10, 15 minutes, we're just going to have to continue onwards. That would have to be the position because we do not have the luxury of time to complete the budgetary process. So I said we adjourn for 5 minutes to allow the technical people maybe to have a chat with Cable or see what they could do, and then we will come back in 5 minutes. And hopefully it'll be resolved. But if it be not possible to be resolved, we must press on regardless. Thank you, Madam President. I so move that the Senate suspend for 5 minutes. Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded. The Senate take a 5-minute break, and we will return at that time, hopefully with correction.
Madam President, we advise that The issue is that the cable broadcast of ZNS is where there are some errors or issues, and that is a matter internal to Cable Bahamas, that the ZNS app that you can download is without any problems. And so on that basis, we can confidently proceed, and we trust that cable will... Oh, okay, wonderful. We trust that Cable Bahamas will resolve that issue, but we must press forward towards the mark now. And so, Madam President, I invite you to reconvene us. Thank you.
Okay, we will begin again after our short break, and our speaker will be Senator Dava, who we will give the liberty of beginning his presentation from the start. Senator Dava.
Thank you so much, Madam President, and thank you that the apparent glitches are now sorted out, and from what we are gathering, people can now hear and see the proceedings in this honorable place. In Romans chapter 12, verse 2, the Bible says, "Do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Madam President, the challenges facing the Bahamas today are tremendous. And the manner in which we navigate through these turbulent waters will have serious implications for many years to come. What we need is God's guidance and the boldness to make the tough decisions necessary to put our country back on the road of economic recovery and social reform. A feel-good budget, along with some promises in your final hours in this place, should be the last thing any sober government should have on their agenda. But this administration refuses to see further than its political ambitions and have turned a blind eye to what must be done today to secure the country's economic position in the future. Madam President, this morning I thank God for health and strength, and for once again for the ability to stand in this honorable place to make my contribution to this outgoing administration's final budget. Wow, how time has really flown. It seemed like yesterday we sat downstairs to listen to the speech from the throne, and our leader on this side said, "Hey guys, stay focused. We only have 260 weeks away from the general election." Well, that's good, because the equipment is working better now. Thank you, cousin. Your voice sounds powerful. Well, hey, listen here, I appreciate that. Yes. 12 months left to go, or even before. Thank you, Lord. Madam President, the last 4 years has not been easy for me, but I believe that 2020, it was 20, was a difficult year for all of us. And from what it looks like from the reports from the World Bank on our economy, we better brace ourselves for another 12 months, because it's going to be rough. After listening to all of the self-congratulatory speeches from many members opposite, particularly in the other place, and to some extent by the two presenters yesterday, I must admit that I'm saddened, absolutely saddened, because it really makes me wonder whether the government truly understands its role and purpose. Madam President, we must remind this F&M administration that they were elected by the people to do what is in the best interest of the people in good and bad times. This means in times of hardship, the government must devise ways to ease the burden and suffering of all citizens throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is the government's obligation, and one of the major reasons why they were elected. So to congratulate yourself, doing the job you were elected to do, reminds me of a disgruntled employee congratulating himself after completing tasks that he was paid to do. This is not only wrong, it is distasteful. Madam President, as a small nation, we are subjected to many issues and challenges that are not of our own making and in many instances beyond our control. But as elected officials, we must find innovative ways to forge a pathway through all of these issues to help our citizens. We don't have the luxury of hope for it to happen. We must do the necessary steps to make it happen. Over the last several decades, we've experienced multiple shocks in our local economy. The Gulf War in 1990, the financial crisis in 2000, the negative effects of global warming and its effects with the hurricane season, and now Hurricane Dorian and the COVID-19 pandemic. That is why we must be sober-minded in our deliberations and focus on ways in which we can steer our ship into safe waters. Madam President, as I listened to the side opposite for the past weeks, I could not help but to reflect on the famous quote, "Nero fiddled while Rome burned." To put the phrase in its historical context, in the year 64 AD, Rome was devastated by a huge fire that lasted 6 days. The fire destroyed about 3/4 of all the buildings, and half the population in Rome was homeless. So the quote demonstrates, very sadly, the disconnect between the tremendous challenges the Romans faced and the leader that was chosen to lead them. In our situation in the Bahamas today, the Free National Movement Administration, through its 2021-2022 budget, seemed to be disconnected from the real issues and the significant challenges that are currently facing our nation. Last year, at the start of COVID pandemic, during the budget debate, the Minister of Finance, the former Minister of Finance, the Honorable Peter Turnquest, quoted as saying the budget is designed to transform the crisis into an opportunity for future prosperity. At that time, the Economic Recovery Committee was identified as the organization that will bring new ideas on how we would jumpstart our economy. Madam President, as an honorable person, I stand to be corrected. But as far as I am aware, the delivery of the expectations have fallen short of the statement, and many programs have been put against the wayside. During last year's budget debate, the government launched the Resilient Bahamas Plan, which the Prime Minister described as a robust plan that looked beyond the urgency of the pandemic. In his speech during this budget debate, the Prime Minister stated that the world has continued to change drastically since the Resilient Plan, and he is now implementing an accelerated Bahamas recovery plan. Either plan, the Resilient one or the accelerated one, seems to have been crafted in isolation from the escalating debt and the harsh realities that the chickens will come home to roost in short order if we are not able to produce the surpluses necessary to meet the expectations of the IMF. Our citizens did not vote for a government to create self-serving election feel-good plan. They voted for visionary leadership, which we are lacking. You see, Madam President, statements and slogans are easy to come by, but real progress and transformation during these challenging times comes from clarity of vision. You've got to see it clear. Strong and focused leadership missing in this country under the Free National Movement. In the Free National Movement 2017 manifesto, this is what they said about fiscal discipline, and I quote, "The fiscal management of the Bahamas have been less than desirable, as evidenced by an unsustainable ballooning national debt, multiple sovereignty issues and downgrades despite rising taxes. If left unchecked, the situation could doom future generations to a standard of living well below the current one we enjoy." Well, since the government was elected in May 2017, they have added $3 billion to the national debt, which will soon become $4 billion once the budget is passed. They have increased taxes on the backs of the Bahamian people. Our sovereign credit rating has been further downgraded. In 2017, they came to power on the People's Time Wave, and the debt stood at that time at $6.5 billion. But by the end of June 2022, under their watch, it would balloon to $10.4 billion, a whooping 60% increase in just 4 years. And yet, They have the heart. Where's your heart? They have the gall to stand up in this parliament, patting themselves on the back and talking about how well they did in managing this country. The devil is a liar.
Well, he is.
I am curious to see what they would say in their 2020 manifesto regarding fiscal discipline. I wait to see what you can say. COVID-19, blame everything on COVID-19. Madam President, never before in the history of Parliament has the official opposition been so aided by members of the governing party in highlighting the deficiencies of this government's plan during this budget debate. The former Minister of Health, Dr. Dwayne Sands, took the words right out of my mouth. When he said the budget does not acknowledge where we are in deep trouble. And this government is not addressing the seriousness of the existing crisis. We have reached on the edge of the fiscal cliff, he said. These are not my words. These are the words of Dr. Dwayne Sands in an article to the National Guardian dated June the 10th, 2021. Here are an additional few thoughts. A country can't operate from strength when it's drowning in debt. It cannot control its future if it can't pay its bills. It can't uplift its people if it can't stand on its own 2 feet. The country must stand upright and strong on its physical footing to deliver tangible benefits and quality of services the Bahamian people deserve. Even our neighbors in the regions have discovered, if you're not arrest the upward spiraling debt burden or in interest payments on debt alone, we will definitely be in trouble going ahead, and we will be unable to provide jobs for Bahamians. Those are not my words, Madam President. They are the words of the former Minister of Finance, the Deputy Leader, Peter Turnquest, made on February 2029 during his communication to the debate on the Fiscal Responsibility Act, 2019. A mere 2.5 years later, he made those comments. The F&M administration has recklessly, I said recklessly, placed us on an upward debt spiral while whistling in the dark as if everything is fine and the country is moving in the right direction. This is far from the truth, Madam President, and the deceit that this F&M administration is perpetrating is nothing more than disgraceful. Thank you so much.
We need a gallon.
It's a little bit warm.
That I throw that in buckets.
During the budget debate last year, I highlighted the fact that the IMF, as a condition to the $250 million emergency loan, required that the government run $500 million budget surpluses beginning from 2024-2025 in order to hit a key debt reduction target by the end of this decade. At that time, I queried whether this administration was on a fool's errand. And based on what I see in this budget, the former minister, I apologize for Grand Bahama, who has never set foot on Grand Bahama. I see in this year's budget, the answer to my question is a resounding yes. Madam President, our budget deficit for this fiscal year is projected to be $951.8 million, for which means that in order for us to hit this $500 million budget surplus target by June 2025, set by the IMF, we will have to generate roughly $1.5 billion in 3 years cumulatively. We should all believe in miracles, and I do, especially when it comes to the debt surplus. The truth of the matter is that unless and until we boldly face our challenges in an honest and forthright manner, No meaningful solutions will be found, and we will be headed down the path in the arms of the IMF at an alarming speed. So here we are today, with what I describe as a government fiddling in the dark while we are sinking under the heavy burden of debt. When criticized, the government fallback position is the devastating effects of Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19 pandemic.
Real fun.
Yeah, and the PLP, I forget that way. Yeah, the PLP. Yes, it is a fact that both these crises has exacerbated our debt woes. But if the truth be told, this administration had already borrowed $1.2 billion. I got to make this clear. $1.2 million even before we ever heard of Hurricane Dorian or the coronavirus that's causing pandemic. Madam President, what this budget fails to acknowledge is the fact that we are even and always a cycle away from a major hurricane. With the deficit at $952 million and the debt to GDP pegged at 84.3%, where is the wiggling room for recovery? God forbid we are hit with another powerful hurricane. Back in 2019, prior to the Hurricane Dorian, our debt stood at our debt to GDP stood at 57.9%. If a similar hurricane was to hit us this year with a debt to GDP ratio of 84.3%, where do we turn? When and where will we seek loans to rebuild our country? Further, how will we be able to make the annual interest payment on our loans of approximately $500 million? That's for you to say. Despite this administration denial, the country is indeed on a fiscal cliff. I want to make this clear. Despite your administration denial, the country is indeed on a fiscal cliff, and may I add, standing on a banana peel. A ripe banana peel. In the communication in 2020, the IMF advised the government to implement decisive fiscal management to put public debt clear on a downward spiral in order to meet the targets of the Fiscal Responsibility Act put in place by this administration. Based on what is reflected in the 2021-2022 budget, this minister-led administration is borrowing and increasing expenditures based on what I consider to be overestimated and unrealistic revenue projections. Concerns have already been said in the other place by members on our side. And we agree to what has been said. Our debt position today is so precarious that more than ever small variance in our revenue expectations spell disaster. Madam President, we will win the government and we will show this administration how to run the government. Madam President, the FNM administration came to power stressing transparency and accountability. Madam President, please protect me, because it's obvious that this crew cannot take the truth. Please protect me, Madam President. Please protect me.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Madam President? Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable senators, we will not, honorable senators, we will not allow our side, the side of the government, to disrespect the speaker from either side. Okay? We understand that there may be different modes of behavior, but our behavior is give him an opportunity to present his comments. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Madam President, for protecting me. I really appreciate it, because it's all right when the Minister of State and me have a discussion, but when the entire Free National Movement, it's going to be virtually impossible for the people of the Bahamas to hear what I have to say. Thank you so much. Absolutely. That's fine. But the people of the Bahamas want to hear me. Please give me that privilege. Are we watching our time? Please. Madam President,
By the same token, I trust that the same thing happens on the other side.
well, Mom, I can only speak, Madam President, I can only speak for myself. When Senator Darius was speaking, I was quiet. When you were speaking, I was quiet, Minister, because I have that amount of respect for you. So please extend that to me.
You realize you're losing your time, right? No. You're on your feet, and so your time continues. You do not respond back to them. Continue with your speech.
Madam President, this FNM administration came to power stressing transparency and accountability. They passed a number of bills at addressing these issues, but when we remove the veil, we see a government that lacks accountability and transparency. Let's start with the 60% increase in value-added tax, something this government opposed aggressively in opposition. Then there's the seat surrounding the Oban deal. Where's the files? Who keeps the files? Of course, we must remember the turmoil at BPL board and the allegations of malfeasance at the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. In both cases, the public was promised a report, but at this government, and now that we are approaching the end of their term, I don't expect to see one. The lack of transparency surrounding the death toll from Hurricane Dorian and the poor management of that crisis will remain in the psyche of Bahamians for years to come. And how can we forget the egregious failure of the competent authority through decency of Parliament to lay in this House what he has been doing over the last 14 to 17 months under the emergency orders? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Yeah. That's what you call lack of transparency and accountability. Madam President, it will take longer than I have to speak about the duplicity of this administration. But this budget is a clear reflection of their trademark and what they have been doing in government. I say, what time is it? It's not the people time. It's crying time again for the Bahamian people. But I must remind this arrogant administration, you can deceive some of the people some of the time, but you cannot deceive all the people all of the time. Madam President, I now turn my attention to the island of Grand Bahama, an island that has much potential, but over the last 4 years, nothing tangible has happened, and the question is why. The reason why I'm not running there is because they said you were coming, and I was telling you. In the last general election, the Free National Movement won 5 seats on Grand Bahama and promised the residents of Grand Bahama from Sweetingski to West End all these good things that they promised to do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They said that they had a plan that would alleviate economic stagnation, create jobs, and bring hope to a hurting people. In the speech from the throne, this administration promised some specific things for Grand Bahama that we are all still waiting for, and I quote, my government will focus on the development of Freeport as an offshore tech hub. Nothing. My government will promote Grand Bahama as the primary location for international film and television industry. Nothing. My government will create incentives to establish financial services center on Grand Bahama. Nothing. Talk and nothing. After 4 years of shuckling and jiving, absolutely nothing promised to the resident of Grand Bahama has been accomplished. Why did you read the speech from the throne if you knew you were not going to do anything for the people? Why? Well, I guess Senator Mitchell, they can blame it on the PLP. Well, we're ready to take it because in your final hours of government, you could put the burden on us because we're ready to take the wheel and start jamming. Madam President, after 4 years, we keep hearing about the sale of the now rundown Lucayan Resort because they never did nothing to fix it. Mold infested, in terrible conditions. We on this side say, thank God that if you sold it, that you have taken the economic drag of our public purse. And after spending more than $140 million of taxpayers' money, we believe the property will be sold at a fraction of the cost to the direct foreign investors. Those eyes are not on that property. Their eyes is the property across the street from the harbor. Millions of dollars wasted that could have been used to help the poor people in Grand Bahama. 80 plus million gone down the tube in these kind of hard times, and you and here pat yourself on the back that you did a good job. The devil is a liar. We won this administration. Don't touch it. So in the spirit of transparency, please lay the purchase agreement in this parliament so that we all can see it, because I've been around here long enough to know that the devil's in the details. Yesterday, in one of the dailies, day before yesterday in one of the dailies, reporter Chester Roberts spoke about the deal and the fact that when it's all concluded, it could mean some $2.1 billion injection in the economy for 25 years. Listen here, man. In your final hour of government, thank God something happening, because we need to get some things going if we're going to turn this economy around. With that being said, the PLP welcomes the good news for Grand Bahama, but I take it as a grain of salt until I see the document lay in this place. Nothing happening. Nothing happening. Your speech from the throne was a waste of time for Grand Bahama because you produced nothing. I divide my tongue. Madam President, man, I didn't interrupt you when you speak. I did not interrupt you, Minister of State. I allow you to speak, and I showed you the respect by leaving the chambers. But it's me and you. It's me and you. I gave you the respect. Give it to me. Madam President, you showed him respect by leaving the chambers. We could not remember, but I was listening to him. We all could remember the hype and the PR from the Ministry for Grand Bahama regarding the first tech investor brought into the country. But later, closed down all his operation, leaving the jurisdiction with a bitter taste in his mouth, and claiming that the government did not live up to their part of the agreement and misled him and his associates. Lots of broken promises for investors, lots of monies lost. Apparently, this lethal blow practically buried the idea, because I'm still waiting for the minister to speak about this glamorous tech hub. Nothing. Dead on arrival. Madam President, when I wrap up, I didn't disturb you. If you have something to say, you should have said in your speech. Madam President, other than the infrastructural projects launched by the Progressive Liberal Party that you can see, touch, and feel, very little has been accomplished in Grand Bahama since 2017. The Honorable Peter Turnquest said a mouthful during his contribution to the budget debate last week, and I quote, "The people of East Grand Bahama for many years have gotten the short end of the stick when it comes to government allocations. After borrowing millions of dollars, billions of dollars, after borrowing billions of dollars, what does Grand Bahama have to show for it? Grand Bahama continues to be plagued with very high unemployment, which, as the last report was pegged at about 40%, brought on by multiple shocks. That we agree. But I submit to this Parliament that the legacy of this administration as it relates to Grand Bahama can be summed up with the three following blunders. The purchase of Grand Lucayan Hotel for some $60 million, and after investing $140 million of taxpayers' money, some $80 million of taxpayers' money was squandered at a time when people needed that money most. The controversial purchase of the Grand Bahama International Airport and from Hutchison Mompore group of companies, who collected the insurance money, walked away from their obligations under the Hawksbill Creek Agreement, and dumped it on this administration. And finally, the laughable multi-billion-dollar Oban deal, referred to as a rookie mistake by Minister Pinta. A rookie mistake. That's how he called his prime minister. A rookie. I agree with him. I agree with him, absolutely. I asked the government, where is the missing files? Again. And who will compensate the Bahamian people for the crown land tied up in that rookie deal? The truth of the matter is the deal is still binding. And I understand that the government could face litigation if they refuse to honor the agreement. The sad thing about these three legacy blunders is the fact that the Bahamian taxpayer, and this is the part that got me, the Bahamian taxpayer, that's me, you, and all of us out there, is left holding the bag in Grand Bahama during one of the worst 4 years this country has ever seen. Madam President, the only thing this administration has done right for the people of Grand Bahama is they have not repealed and replaced the Grand Bahama Investment Incentive Bill left behind by the PLP. After 4 years, this government said that they're negotiating. They're still negotiating with the heads of agreement we left behind. That heads of agreement took land back from the Grand Bahama Port Authority, and we put it back in the hands of the people. We negotiated land grab. Read the documents. I was there. In order to contract, it was there. In order to contract the business model of the island, we need to expand the vision on the free trade zone. Plotting a new course would be challenging, and it must be brought in by the Grand Bahama Port Authority as well as the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam President, a few days ago, the Grand Bahama Port Authority Reef Committee released its revitalization and expansion plan for the economy of Freeport. We on this side are presently reviewing that plan, and in the months ahead, we will be reaching out to the Grand Bahama Port Authority to discuss this report and to finalize how this report will be implemented in the PLP's 2022 platform. The residents of Grand Bahama can rest assured that the PLP has a workable plan for the entire island, and we intend to release our plan before the next general election is called. The reason why we don't want to release our plan, because every time we release it, you'll try to thief it. Yeah, the minister incorporated our plan in his speech. That's where you say, you know what we said. He incorporated it in his presentation. We want to say that the Reef Report confirmed that Grand Bahama Port Authority has little stake in the game and appeared to be relinquishing much of its investment obligations and putting it on the backs of the Bahamian taxpayers while hiding behind the antiquated Hawksbill Creek Agreement, a document signed by the UBP government in 1955 before many of us in this place was born, and will be expired in 2054 when many of us will be dead and gone. Madam President, it appears that there's a serious trust issue between the new owners of the Grand Bahama Port Authority and the government. And we have to be able to build those relationships back. Otherwise, we will be going around and around in circles. Madam President, change must come. It's wrong. Please excuse me. Change must come. Yeah, good. Change must come for Grand Bahama, and it will come under the next PLP administration led by Philip Brave Davis. Under his visionary leadership, investors can rest assured that we on this side will honor all contractual agreements signed by former governments with direct foreign investors, and will work to forge mutual partnerships. But we will not compromise the sovereignty of our country, and we will not give up what is in the best interest of our people. Like the rest of our archipelago, Grand Bahama is blessed with the natural resources, and those resources must be mined and protected according to strict international environmental standards. If this administration does not seek to fix the irregularities in the Hawksbill Creek Agreement environmental laws, new environmental laws will be enacted by the Progressive Liberal Party in our first 100 days in government.
Just a correction, please, sir.
The chair recognizes Senator Bevel.
As presently stated in the law, the Environmental Planning and Protection Act applies throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Yes, including Grand Bahama. However, that provision is perhaps doesn't sit well with original commitments made in the Hawksbill Creek Agreement. It is being reviewed, and we are seeking to arrive at an acceptable compromise consistent with the contractual commitment in the Hawke's Bay Creek Agreement. However, that cannot be arrived at unless the Grand Bahama Port Authority were to, by regulations, impose, in terms of the legal framework within the port area, environmental standards consistent with the national environmental standards. We know, historically, that there have been problems going back to the very foundation of the port with environmental standards. That was a cause of complaint way back even in 1970. That was a cause of complaint that we found reflected in a report that your government had to do prior to 2017 into the issue of emissions from certain facilities affecting certain communities in West Grand Bahama, or allegedly doing so. So until we can have a situation where we have comparable environmental standards set by the port, nothing will change, but we are working towards that goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, AG. The only thing I'm saying is if you don't get around to doing it, we have made a commitment to the residents of Grand Bahama that we will do it in the first 100 days.
You didn't do it when you had 5 whole years last time.
Let me finish. Let me finish, man. Let me finish. I allowed you to state your case. I can only tell you what we intend to do if you don't do it. The law is this. Then go ahead and make the changes without going through the bylaws under the Hawke's Bay Creek Agreement. And then you'll see them in court. Madam President, a few days ago, I drove to East Grand Bahama to see what was happening post-Hurricane Dorian, and tears came to my eyes to see the state of what is happening post-Hurricane Dorian. During my presentation in this place, I was tempted, God be my witness, to bring some pictures to show how bad the situation really is. But I decided not to, out of respect and to preserve the dignity of the people of High Rock, McLeanstown, Sweetens Cape. But I say, this administration should hold its head down in shame. How could you build up the nerve to show your faces in this community? They tell me they run in you. They say they run you. Correct yourself, that's what they tell me. Some people say they run you from their door.
Madam President, that's a comment that, no, that's the comment that I did not want to leave on the record because it's absolutely false and it is misleading. And Madam President, it is curious that I was the former member of Parliament for Pine Ridge. The Speaker was also the former member of Parliament for Pine Ridge. I am the candidate for East Grand Bahama. There was somebody who was run out of Grand Bahama. There was somebody who was run out and who was no longer the member, who was no longer a candidate in Grand Bahama.
Thank you so much. Madam President, it's quite obviously that I hit a nerve. I didn't intend to because that is my friend. The reason why I'm not in Grand Bahama is because I have personal issues with a loved one who I dearly admire. And I have made a commitment that I would stay by her side until such a time as the Lord call her home. I would live up to that commitment, irrespective of what individuals may say about me. But I can say this much. I just came back from East Grand Bahama, and be careful how you're talking to me, Minister, because there's some people in Grand Bahama who love me that you may need my help to help you. During his contribution to the budget, Peter Turnquest, the former Minister of Finance and Deputy Leader of the Free National Movement, quote, and I stated, I remain disappointed in the Disaster Reconstruction Authority has not followed through with their commitments to provide temporary dome houses for residents in the affected areas that need accommodation. I do not accept the present situation and regret that I am forced to mention it again. Under your own watch and in the people of East Grand Bahama, try to help the people. I guess the Member of Parliament for East Grand Bahama hit a nerve in this administration, because on Monday, during his wrap-up, the most honorable Prime Minister spoke about the McLeanstown subdivision, developed under the former Christie administration, that sat dormant under his administration. Yet after flooding cases,
But, Madam President, again, I just want to correct her. Madam President, it is true that the subdivision in East Grand Bahama, McLeanstown, was started by the former administration. But to say that it sat dormant is completely incorrect. We completed the infrastructure that was left undone by the former administration.
Madam President, we had the Prime Minister was speaking. If it was not for the PLP putting that piece of infrastructure in place, he would have nothing to offer the residents of East Grand Bahama. Thank God for the PLP who had the vision to know that a subdivision was needed. And as far as the prices is concerned, the whole of McLeanstown was underwater. And so it's impossible to sell those lots at the same price that they were originally targeted for. Madam President, I ask the question again. What is the purpose of the Ministry of Disaster Preparedness and Reconstruction? The portfolio could have been absorbed anywhere. To be honest, the ministry in itself is a disaster, underfunded, and the new minister is placed in a worse position than the former minister. Last year in my summary, I said that looking at line item in head 75, it appears that the minister, Hiram Lewis, was operating from his briefcase. But no staff, and nothing to do in Grand Bahama but trying to claim PLP projects. But my God, when I look at line item in the budget, I notice $6 million cut from head 75 and $2 million from its capital works budget during the hurricane year. Oh, I was going to say some other things. I better hold that for another time. In a few weeks ago, I visited Abaco, and the city looks like a place lost in time. Countless debris still around everywhere. Still need major cleanups so that the residents can get on with trying to reconstruct and rebuild their lives. Yes, these senseless cuts from the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness and Construction budget has left that ministry underfunded. The Member of Parliament for North Abaco, the Honorable Darren Henfield, did not address this issue for his people, so I trust that as we go through the budget heads, the Minister of State for Grand Bahama and Finance, who is now the FNM candidate for East Grand Bahama, can show the people of Grand Bahama and Abaco where the money is for them in the 2021-2022 budget to help them prepare for this hurricane season. Madam President, I now turn my attention to health issues affecting the nation. The COVID pandemic has driven home the point of how critical the health of our citizens is in our economic progress as a country. Access to affordable health care for all citizens must therefore be an urgent and pressing goal. If our citizens are sick and unhealthy, our collective productivity as a nation suffers. For too long, we have been throwing money at problems caused by old age public health system issues rather than enacting necessary institutional reforms that could plug the leakages and save much needed resources that can be redirected to upgrade our healthcare system and patient care. The financial challenges we face in the country require that we utilize our limited resources in a way that will enhance efficiency and productivity. The truth of the matter is, we must learn to do more with less. Madam President, as of March of this year, the government has spent $25.9 million on COVID public health and safety measures and boasts of its plan to invest some $100 million during its final months of their term in office. The fact is, this administration does not have 18 months in office to complete all of these projects proposed, so I state these projects, if they are activated, will fall at the feet of the new administration of this country. Madam President, one of the first things on the PLP agenda for healthcare is to identify and stop unnecessary wastage at all public hospitals and clinics. This must be done by creating an atmosphere of accountability at our government healthcare facilities and transparency with the collection of funds for all services rendered at our clinics and hospitals, and this must become the order of the day coming out of COVID-19. Then there's the issue of equity in healthcare delivery across the country. The time has come for Family Island residents to have access to improved quality healthcare services. The Free National Movement, in their speech from the throne, promised a mini hospital for Eleuthera, which, like so many of their promises, never saw the light of day. Now, after abandoning the commitment by the Ministry of Health, the minister is now promising the people of Rock Sound a 2,000 plus square foot clinic. God willing, and with the support of the people of Eleuthera, we will continue where we left off in our last term in office. Yes, we will complete the proposed clinic for Rock Sound and construct the much needed multi-hospital for the people of Eleuthera who have been asking for it for years. We must and we will find ways to offer enhanced medical services to our family islands through public-private partnerships and utilizing technology more effectively. Madam President, I listened carefully as the Honorable Minister of Health preached his last budget sermon, along with his choir in the front row of the lower house, and the pews behind him giggling as he was presented. Quite frankly, other than delusions of grandeur, he had very little to say about healthcare reform and delivery systems. His entire presentation revolved around the long overdue clinic and hospital upgrades left behind by the former Christie administration, packaged and researched by NHI International Consultants from KPMG, that are apparently tied up with this $60 million IDB loan he keeps talking about. I must remind this administration that in 2016, KPMG presented a working report addressing 96 clinics stretching across our archipelago, with 54 that needed repair. While in office, we targeted 19 of the major clinics for essential upgrades as part of our launch to primary healthcare component of national health insurance. Madam President, the Progressive Liberal Party started the necessary clinic upgrades in North and South Islands, Cat Island, Eleuthera, Spanish Wells, Harbor Island, San Salvador, Negrona, Auckland, Crooked Island, Long Island, Inagua, and yes, both of the mini hospitals in Abaco and Exuma. On coming to office, this same F&M administration, who's now having a Holy Ghost experience, stopped, reviewed, and canceled all of the work, leaving the majority of these clinics unfinished, and to date, the contractors who are doing the work have not been paid. After 4 years, this is serious business because people's money is tied up in what I'm talking about. After 4 years, nothing has happened with these clinics under their watch. Now, in their final hours, they want to pick up the PLP plan left behind. But the devil is a liar. Madam President, on one of the popular talk shows, on one of the dailies, day before yesterday, Dr. Sands set the record straight, saying that the former Ministry of Works, Capital Works projects, were starved under his leadership. Starved. And this is my view. I believe they didn't want him to succeed. They didn't want him to succeed. The Free National Movement, I say, and I agree with him, that the $100 million the government is talking about for healthcare upgrade is only a scratch to the surface. So this morning I say, continue preaching the gospel, Minister Wells, and while you're at it, ask the Lord for forgiveness for this vindictive spirit, if that is in the leadership of your party. Ask him for forgiveness. During the budget debate, the Minister of Health, like the Prime Minister, gave a feel-good speech outlining what they're going to do in the next 12 to 18 months. An aggressive agenda to fix practically every infrastructural changes currently existing in the public healthcare system, and to put functional telemedicine programs throughout our archipelago. I wish you well. I wish you well, because your intentions are good. But the Bible says, no, I shouldn't say the Bible, we all know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Madam President, this administration is out of touch and out of time. Fiddling in the dark while Rome burns. Driven by their selfish political ambitions, promising steak and lobster lunches to hungry citizens under one condition, that you could get it after the general election. Gone are those days, Minister Wells. The game is over, Minister. Dog got your lunch. Remember, you can swing some of the people some of the times, but you can't swing all of the people all of the time. On closer examination of the Ministry of Health Budget Head 60, we see a new line item 2281185. Aye, Miss Emmanuel. Under special financial transactions. That's a low one. I take that back. I take that back. No, I better than that. You know why I take that back? It was on my tongue. I tried to hold it back, but I'm from Inagua, like my cousin. On close examination, the Ministry of Health Budget Head 60.
That bill was even lower.
We see the new line item 2281185 under special financial transaction provision for $10 million for COVID-19 contingencies. We on this side feel that this allocation is inadequate due to the opening up of our borders to tourists who could possibly bring to our shores new mutated variants of the coronavirus, and many of these variants are proving to be more contagious and could potentially produce clusters of COVID-19 infections, and if they are not handled effectively, could lead to unwanted community spread. Compounded by the government's slow COVID-19 vaccination program, we cannot afford any more of any costly lockdowns that is destroying our local economy. So, we on this side are advocating for more resources where it matters most, and we believe that this is one of the areas where we will get value for money. During the Minister of Health presentation in the other place, he spoke about testing and the fact that free testing is currently provided at all hospitals and clinics for patients who present with symptoms. What the PLP is advocating for is free testing for both symptomatic and asymptomatic patients, because the science have proven that at least 70% of positive COVID-19 patients are asymptomatic and could be potential community spreaders. Madam President, this invisible enemy can only be found via lab testing, and in order to help strengthen our existing COVID protocols, we believe, like other countries, there is the need for free testings in order for us to find this virus and to prevent community spread. Another concern is the reduction of some $5.2 million in Head 60, item 31120203, upkeep of community clinics. In the speech from the throne, this administration promised all healthcare workers the following, and I quote, "My government will enhance the conditions of services for all healthcare staff." However, I must highlight the fact that this $5.2 million reduction is not, if not allocated elsewhere in this budget, will definitely impact public health and safety measures, as these are high traffic medical facilities. As the shadow Minister of Health, I visit these community clinics from time to time, and I can state that the readiness is not up to par, and they do not meet at this time some of the WHO standards for patients and medical staff who are constantly at risk of infectious disease, including COVID-19. Madam President, this administration is winding up its term in office and simply going through the motions, trying to create a feel-good atmosphere at the Ministry of Health and the country in the next few months. We listened to details of the proposed capital works budget and upgrades at the Rand Memorial Hospital, the Princess Margaret Hospital. I sincerely hope they have adequately assessed the cost, because in this environment, there are multiple cost overruns. Madam President, after total neglect for 4 years. An announcement for Grand Bahama is well received. However, we on this side have some concern with the proposed 4-story tower at the Rand Memorial Hospital site. Because once that tower is constructed, it will now seal the fate of where the Rand Memorial Hospital must be. This reason why I'm highlighting this point is because the Grand Bahama Port Authority Reef Report speaks specifically about medical tourism and the many economic spin-offs that can be achieved if we were to construct a brand new state-of-the-art hospital with airlift capabilities with a sister hospital in South Florida for catastrophic care. Madam President, we know that Hurricane Dorian has affected the existing Rand Memorial Hospital, and we learned from the minister that the proposed 5 feet elevation of the proposed 4-story weather-resistant tower is the right thing to do. This does not change the fact that the existing hospital does not meet the same requirements. It is old, it is inefficient, and God forbid, should we have another major hurricane, it can definitely be affected from surge waters. Madam President, nothing was said by the minister about the plumbing issues at the Rand Memorial Hospital and the ongoing hot water challenges at parts of the Rand Memorial Hospital, and yes, the alternative power system is not in place in the middle of a hurricane season. But we on this side say it is what it is. And I say the next government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas will have to work with all the stakeholders to design a new workable model that could attract direct foreign investment back to our island. Madam President, I would like to take a few minutes to speak about the national health insurance, and its mandate to provide universal health care for all Bahamians. In the last term in office, we were successful in launching the first phase of NHI by way of universal primary health care based on a phased approach model that would ultimately reduce the cost on the public purse for health care in the years to come. The additional $7 million allocated in the NHI budget and this year's budget is a step in the right direction. But a lot more must be done to speed up the process in order for us to reach the ultimate goal of universal health care for all Bahamians. I was pleased to see the long-awaited transition of leadership team at the National Health Insurance Authority. The chairman and his board must be commended for their hard work and for sticking with the roadmap left behind by the Progressive Liberal Party. Madam President, this COVID-19 pandemic has taught us a great lesson about the importance of the easy access to health care, and provides the right way for us to achieve this objective by way of NHI. Madam President, within the first 100 days of the Davis-led administration, the Ministry of Health, in conjunction with National Health Insurance Authority, will conduct an analysis of the current NHI programs with an aim to expand the medical, diagnostic, and lab services offered and move to add a well-structured, cost-effective, catastrophic program. Over the last 2 years, we on this side have noticed the increase in morbidity and mortality rates, particularly in communities in the northern Bahamas devastated by Hurricane Dorian. Many of those affected suffered from moderate to severe complications of non-communicable diseases compounded by limited public health care consultation brought on by COVID-19 and the multiple lockdowns. These challenges have brought a long waiting list of patients seeking tertiary care for services not within the scope of the current NHI plan. Madam President, there's no secret that many life-saving surgeries and medical procedures are not available in the public health care system, and the large majority of our people do not have private health insurance and simply do not have the money to access these life-saving procedures. For all of us in public life, we are constantly bombarded with individuals who are seeking assistance for these life-saving procedures. And as a former member of Parliament, I know, because they would be to my office many times looking for help to get these life-saving procedures. Madam President, I was fortunate enough to have medical insurance and was able to access world-class health services locally because of COVID-19. I thank God I survived, and many like myself did not. There has to be equity in the system. And the lack of money should not be a reason why a poor man should live or die because he cannot get health care services. Madam President, we on this side have been following COVID-19 updates and innovative protocols from our neighbors, particularly the Cayman Islands and the Turks and Caicos Islands. As of this week, the Cayman Islands have reported no COVID-19 community spread. And their vaccination program is going extremely well. Currently, they lead the region with some 70+% of its population already vaccinated, and plans are already in place for full reopening of that country in mid-September of this year. Research going forward are coming from the CDC and the World Health Organization indicate that most vaccines, including AstraZeneca, show to be protective against the new variants after the second jab, and that's good news for us at home. The Progressive Liberal Party supports the Ministry of Health vaccination program, and the leadership of our party have been advocating for massive public education programs and options. With less than 26,000 adults of our population fully vaccinated, we are short of the numbers required to reach herd immunity. As a major tourist jurisdiction, the low numbers of vaccinated residents expose us to the possibility of high level of community spread if any of the new variant strains of COVID-19 hit our shores. So it's important to keep our guards up. The leadership of our party have been advocating for massive public health education and the introduction of other vaccine options in the country. And I noticed today the minister spoke about reaching out to the private sector, finally, to see if they can assist us with this issue. Here is the backbone of the PLC's position in the fight against COVID-19. 1, free testing for all Bahamians. 2, improve contact tracing and quarantine and isolation protocols. Move away from costly lockdowns. And rather, let's work to identify positive cases and isolate. COVID vaccine must be voluntary, and I want to make this clear. I've noticed that there is this atmosphere that people who are not vaccinated could possibly be discriminated upon. That should not happen. COVID vaccines must be voluntary, and individuals who have not been vaccinated should not be discriminated upon. Even though, as a medical profession, I am preaching that you take the vaccine, if you do not, you should not be discriminated upon. I am fully vaccinated, sir, and I look forward to convincing any Bahamian throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to do the same. Mask wearing, social distancing, and hand washing continues to be the factor of the day. And it's important that we continue with this until such time as our public health officials give us the go-ahead not to. There's much work to be done. And once again, the PLP leadership team extend our hands to this administration. We say let's work together on this national issue. We have done it before in the financial services sector. I believe we can do it with this issue and establish a bipartisan buy-in approach, convincing Bahamians everywhere of the overall benefit of the vaccination and the importance of being vaccinated as part of what we need to do to recover. Madam President, I believe that we're still in the third wave of COVID-19. And as a people, we must remain vigilant and not let our guards down. This pandemic has brought home the immediate need for an infectious disease ward, which we fully support, because it will manage these cases much better while ensuring that our tertiary healthcare facilities are not affected and we can provide necessary services that do not revolve around infectious disease. I'm pleased to learn that about 170 nurses will be joining the medical profession in the next year and a half. I trust that the majority would be absorbed in the public healthcare system and treated fairly so that they would not have an early departure. Therefore, we are calling on the government to please complete all outstanding industrial agreements for the nurses union before the end of your term in office. Madam President, post-Dorian, we have received complaints from family and loved ones suffering from mental illness. And yes, if we were to open our eyes in our community today, we will see young men and women walking our street who need immediate medical and mental attention. In our next term in office, we will review the current Medical Health Act, with the intent of making some of the key amendments that will address many of the efficiencies in that act in an attempt to improve the delivery of health services, not just in New Providence and Grand Bahama, but across the Family Islands. Likewise, Madam President, we have met with many medical professions during our time in opposition, particularly young doctors, and we believe they are wrongly disadvantaged by the current Medical Act. So we intend to address some of the pressing issues that they face in inhibiting them from reaching their true goals and objectives, and to be able to make a positive contribution to the medical fraternity and the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam President, I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank all of the frontline workers who are still in the fight against COVID-19. They are our true heroes, and all must be commended for their acts of love and dedication. Since the former Member of Parliament, Leslie Miller, passed the baton on to me, I have been knocking on doors in Tall Pines constituency, asking for support. I want to thank the residents of Tall Pines. Let me finish, man. And the residents of Tall Pines for their warm reception and words of encouragement. Finally, Madam President, as I take my seat, cousin, let me finish this last stretch. It's hot in here, man. I must conclude by saying that the country is heading in the wrong direction. This election budget presented by the F&M administration veils the economic doom and gloom that lurks around the corner. The Prime Minister on Monday in his contribution in the other place embarked on the great Bahamian sideshow, promising airports, bridges, residential and commercial properties, roadworks, tax breaks, new schools, crown land, and among many other things in his electioneering rabbit hat, fretted, trying to attempt to convince the Bahamian people that the slogan of the people's time has finally arrived. But it was nothing more than a big joke. As part of his contribution, he presented a psychotic display of conceptual drawings, enlarged photographs with promised projects. There were so many of these promised projects that they laid almost 2 to 3 feet deep in the House of Assembly. In many cases, there were no real delivery dates, it was a display of a desperate man grasping at straws in his final hours of his final term in office. I say that this is not leadership, Madam President. It is political pandering of its worst kind. When we consider the sobering challenges that lie ahead for our country, as Bahamians, we deserve better. What we need is visionary leadership. The Honorable Philip Brave Davis is the man for the job. He is compassionate, experienced, with the intellectual ability and human touch to put the Bahamas back on the road to social and economic reform. The Honorable Philip Brave Davis is a God-fearing man. He is my leader, and with God's help and your support, will become the Prime Minister and form the next government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Madam President, I thank you. I realize that we may not be back, and so I want to wish the Bahamas happy Independence Day. May God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you so much. You're all in to be back.
As many, the chair recognizes Senator Bernard Hanford.
I hear you trying to come back in Inagua.
No, sir.
Don't even think about it.
Now listen, be careful now.
Don't think about it.
My mom, you know, Madam President, Madam President, good morning. And I'm gonna,
No, you almost
you see, I gotta
I got a text a while ago, Madam President, from my mom, who was watching, so I'm not going to respond to Senator Davil. I'm going to be on my best behavior today.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Madam President, Madam President, that gentleman from Fox Hill was trying to get my mom's vote, said to tell her hello. I'm not going to tell her. Madam President, through you, I extend my greetings to our fellow Bahamians listening and watching both locally and abroad. I pause to remind them that this budget exercise is the most politically charged debate of the year. As usual, agendas will be advanced, facts will be disputed, figures will be discussed. And I will remind them, as you have seen displayed just now, being in the opposition is the easiest thing to do in politics. Madam President, the public will look on and will listen in today and for the remainder of the week to hear what will improve their quality of life. The public will also want to know, Madam President, the state of the country's finances, how much revenue we're generating, how much are we borrowing, and how is it being spent. Madam President, having read through the budget draft estimates and the compendium of bills, I stand prepared to support the budget. I stand prepared to support the budget, Madam President, because the measures that I see will make more Bahamians homeowners and business owners. I stand to support the budget, Madam President, because these measures will reduce the cost of starting and operating a business in the Bahamas. I am standing to support the budget, Madam President, because these measures will influence family island development. And I am standing to support the budget, Madam President, because these measures will accelerate employment, business recovery, and expansion in the Bahamas. Madam President, this budget exercise is about the future of our people and accelerating the country's recovery, all in an effort to improve the quality of life for Bahamians. Yesterday, Madam President, I listened for almost 2 hours as the Minister of State for Finance and of Grand Bahama spoke from the heart. Yes, there were figures, facts, plans, and countless achievements. But most noticeably, Madam President, was his compassion. His acknowledgement of the varying realities of Bahamians all over our country, and the reminder of why he and we all come here. I was reminded, Madam President, that people don't care what you do and how you do it until they know why you do it. You see, yesterday, the why we serve the Bahamian people was witnessed, because we want to improve their quality of life. So why are we where we are financially? It is because our leadership felt that no expense should be spared to save Bahamian lives and livelihood. Thus, the public's health and mitigating the spread of COVID became priorities. Why did the government spend millions on social assistance? Because this pandemic, which brought the world to a halt with the global lockdowns, curfews, business closures, etc., also rendered our country and the average Bahamian vulnerable. And rather than holding on to the bragging rights for having attained the lowest budget deficit in a decade, the government and the F&M government chose to pivot and spare no cost to provide for and guarantee housing, salaries for government workers, grocery and cash in hand for tens of thousands of Bahamians at their worst hour in their lifetime. Madam President, that demonstrated that we were dealing with and being led by a caring government. One that has proven that it can reduce the budget deficit and get our finances in order, yet is also able to pivot and be there for our people in the worst of times. Madam President, I am reminded of what we do as parents. You see, as parents, we leave home many days, but make sure our kids have breakfast and lunch while we're hungry. We as parents go to bed hungry many nights, but make sure our kids' bellies are full And that is what caring parents do. Make the tough decisions and sacrifices so that those in our care can survive and thrive. As parents, we have been saving, or we could have been saving for a car or the down payment for a house. But when an emergency comes and our kids need us, without any hesitation, we spend what we have and we borrow if we need to. That's the kind of thing you do when you care about the people you have responsibility over. You figure out how you will replenish things. You may have to borrow, but when the emergency presents itself for the people you care about, you pivot. You find it even if you have to borrow it. You don't tell your kids or your people, you're on your own. You do as a parent what this Prime Minister and administration has done. You take care of your people, sparing no cost. When your neighbors come around asking why you did so much for your kids, remind them that is what a caring parent does. Madam President, for one to come to the Parliament and say, look how you've increased our debt during this term in office. We should all look at them and ask, where have you been since Dorian ravaged and took offline 2 of the 3 major revenue generators in this country, leaving hundreds of Bahamians and hundreds of Bahamian families without a business, without a home, and without a job? Where have you been since this global pandemic gut-punched this little nation just 6 months after Dorian and took the remaining revenue generators offline? Where were you? Madam President, the reality is our revenue dropped to the floor and our expenditure went to the ceiling, but because of Dorian and this dreadful pandemic. But for those disasters, Madam President, this administration had already proven its capabilities to significantly lower the budget deficit. You'll recall in 2019, the lowest budget deficit in a decade. This administration had already proven that it can make the tough decisions and bravely made access to land and access to funding for the poor and the middle class. There was no SVDC prior to this administration. There was no aggressive distribution of crown land to Bahamians, the poor and the middle class, prior to this administration. Astoundingly, we saw the increase of tourist arrivals and hotel occupancy like never seen before in this country, not prior to this administration. We significantly reduced serious incidents of crime during this administration. But for the pandemic and Dorian, at the rate things were going, Madam President, I am certain the PLP deputy leader would have picked up his red shirt. I am certain Senator Mitchell would have genuinely apologized profusely in the Senate for doubting this administration. Contrary to popular belief in the PLP bubble tent, Madam President, the resilient Bahamas plan for restoration was published, circulated, implemented, and achieved. Bahamians felt confident that the competent authority had the COVID spread manageable with this and his emergency orders. The Bahamian economy and dollar survived 2020 and will continue to hold its position because of the economic stability measures put in place by this Prime Minister. Bahamians saw seeds being planted as early as July 2020, a year ago, to accelerate the country's recovery when it's safe to gradually open up and begin growing our economy again. Madam President, that is resilient and wise leadership, and we are a resilient people. Madam President, that is good governance. That is good leadership. That is making the tough decisions to save lives and livelihood. That is ensuring your people's and your country's success. Madam President, there are a lot of good things to rejoice about, and there are a lot of realities one must appreciate and address. And I think the Minister of State for Finance did a great job at that yesterday. Great achievements and a recognition of the realities of so many Bahamians all over this country. Some during these debates may choose to emphasize the good, and others, like we saw in the previous speaker, may choose to amplify the bad. But everyone is entitled and expected to advance their agendas in Parliament. Madam President, I believe that I can group the compendium of bills as follows. First, there are those that can ensure Family Island development, which is near and dear to my heart. The Family Islands Development Encouragement Amendment Bill 2021 will now, for the first time, extend that act for 5 years as opposed to every year. That gives certainty to development and business individuals. Madam President, the Immigration Amendment Bill 2021. My recommendation is that we focus on permanent residency for persons who are making direct contributions to the development of our family islands. I'm not a foreigner buying a land or a home from another foreigner to then rent out on Airbnb to other foreigners. But I recommend that we focus on this economic permanent residency approval and target it specifically to foreigners looking to help us develop our family islands. Madam President, then there are those bills that speak to Bahamian ownership of land, of homes, and of businesses. Lord knows we as Bahamians want to be owners in this country and not just workers and tenants. And I see the bills seeking to dig deeper into ensuring that is a reality for our people. So I stand to support it. There's the Access to Affordable Homes Amendment Bill, which will grant concessions for Bahamians to purchase building supplies, furniture, and appliances duty-free. There's the Excise and Tariff Amendment Bills 2021, which will have concessions like duty-free or reduced duty on imports for businesses or even hybrid vehicles. There's the Provisional Employment Incentive Program Bill of 2021 with concessions in VAT. There's the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill 2021, which is a business opportunity for tax collection firms or debt collection firms. And if you're familiar with the collection firms in this country, they each employ dozens of Bahamians. There's the Spirits and Beers Manufacture Amendment Bill 2021, which paves the way for Bahamians to launch small alcoholic beverage businesses that can sell to the cruise lines now home porting, to the hotels, to the local restaurants and bars in this country. There's the Real Property Tax Amendment Bill, Madam President. Well, I'll pause here to say that I am no fan of Bahamians paying real property tax in the province, because there's no real property tax for Bahamians in the family islands. So I'm no fan of Bahamians having to pay real property tax in the province. So then, lends to me to make a proposal on an alternative source of revenue. You know, I think it may have been 2 or 3 years ago, Madam President, and I reiterated a year ago, that if the government of the Bahamas would lease acres of land to Bahamians at $5,000 an acre. And I touched on it last year, I touched on it again, I think in the midterm budget debate, but I'm going to expand it. To dedicate 25,000 acres of land and lease those acres at $5,000 an acre, we would generate $125 million annually. If you look at the budget draft estimates of revenue and expenditure, you will see that from real property tax, we generate some $158 million per year. From real property tax, now that's not just the Bahamians in New Providence, that is from foreigners as well. We generate $158 million per year. And my recommendation is that we, again, were to lease 25,000 acres at $5,000 an acre to Bahamians, it would generate $125 million per year. You see, we can't come on the one hand and say that we want to encourage Bahamians to become landowners and homeowners, and then penalize them by taxing them. To my mind, that I really don't want my home here in New Providence. But you can't encourage our people on one hand to become landowners and homeowners in New Providence and then penalize them so that you can raise $158 million. When you can raise $125 million by leasing 25,000 acres annually at $5,000 to Bahamians in strategic family islands and say to them, with this acre, whether you want to do an Airbnb, you want to do some theme park, you want to do a hydroponic or aquaponic farm, go right ahead on this acre of land. You would have developed the family islands. You would have stopped penalizing Bahamians in New Providence to raise $158 million, as you can now raise $125 million. You would have spurred economic growth, caused money to circulate in the millions, created jobs. And that's my recommendation. So I'm not a fan of the real property tax, Madam President. but I threw it out there yet again in more detail. I'll expand on it next term. Madam President, I'm also concerned with the insertion of the new Section 10A of the Real Property Tax Act. In essence, the amendment speaks to a homeowner of a dwelling home using the home as a rental property, that they must within 14 days make a return giving particulars of the change of the use, and failure shall result in a penalty not exceeding $10,000. But I have some concern there. And I would caution the government that public education and awareness for a bill that is to take effect on July 1st is going to be crucial. Because in these times, any number of Bahamians have sought to rent out a portion of their ordinary dwelling home to help make ends meet. So I feel some type of way and urge the government to reconsider. Madam President, I consider it an honor to follow Senator Darwell, who stepped out for a number of reasons. Because yesterday, the senators from Grand Bahama led us off in debate. And we heard from the two senators of Grand Bahama, who did a great job on behalf of Grand Bahamians. They did us proud as a country, specifically as Grand Bahamians. And I nominate Senator Darius for the Minister of Social Services in the next term. I just need a seconder. Second, done, motion carried. So that's the next term. But Madam President, I heard real-life stories on progress, hope, and development. Senator Darwell is no longer running in Grand Bahama. He's now running in New Providence and campaigning in my area of Glaston Road, Tall Pines. And he told Senator Thompson, jokingly, as the Minister of State for Grand Bahama, be careful how you speak to me now, you may need my votes. And welcome to Glaston Road and Tall Pines. Be careful how you speak to my friend across the way, because you may need my vote. Apologize to my friend across the way. So I figure, Madam President, that this must be, in me following Senator Darwell, my interview for that ministerial appointment for responsibility for the Family Islands. Now, Senator Folks, I thought that was in the bag. But just in case this is a formality, I'm going to carry on. Madam President, I listened attentively to Senator Darwell because I believe Senator Darwell missed a great opportunity when he spoke for almost an hour and a half to rise to the occasion and inform and inspire every Bahamian listening, especially those in Tall Pines. One can't tell their supporters that there is nothing there for them in this budget and nothing happening, while the other side is showing their supporters all of the things that is available to everyone. Madam President, doom and gloom cannot be the order of the day when the one thing people need, especially your people, your supporters, the one thing they need more than anything is for their leader to give them hope, direction, inspiration, and a hand up. Well, sometimes you have to step out of that PLP bubble tent and put the future of your supporters before the party's political aspirations. You see, Madam President, contrary to the opposition's rhetoric, this term was and continues to be a great term and time to be in Parliament. And by that very fact, a great time to have been in service to the Bahamian people. It is an undisputable fact that no other parliament in the history of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas has had to navigate through so much upheaval, inclusive of a global pandemic and Hurricane Dorian, yet able to advance much of the country and much of our people in so many ways. It is a fact that this has been and continues to be a terrible time for many. But imagine how much worse it would have been if we were led by a Christy Davis team. Madam President, this was and it continues to be a term that will be etched in history. It began with the electrics loud. It began, I want to Senator Darwell hear this clearly now. So whenever he's done, I will continue. This was and continues to be a term that will be etched in history. It began, Madam President, with the electric's loud and clear rebuke of the arrogant and disrespectful PLP with that 35-4 election result. It was the first time in our history a sitting Prime Minister lost his seat. History. It was the, Madam President, under Minister Diagla, we saw record tourist arrivals and hotel occupancy under this term. We endured the most devastating hurricane in our lifetime, and we are building back better. We spared no expense to provide for and safeguard our people during this pandemic. Madam President, there was the expansion of free tertiary education along with rental assistance for Family Island students. There was the historic launch of home importing of major cruise lines and Family Island cruises, which will directly inject thousands of dollars into our Family Island communities. There was the introduction of the SBDC with business training, grants, and loans for small business entrepreneurs. There was the passage of the Access to Affordable Homes Act at a time when the average Bahamian could not afford to purchase land in their own country, coupled with concession after concession on building supplies and furnishings. There was the safeguarding of our fishing industry exclusively for Bahamians. No more foreigners on board Bahamian vessels acting as if Bahamians don't know how to fish. There was the historic formalization and securing of the revenue collection for planes flying in our airspace. You see, Madam President, this was and continues to be an historic time to serve the Bahamian people. For anyone who has had this opportunity to serve, regardless of whether you were in the executive, on the backbench, in the Senate, or in the opposition, I can assure you that your experience and the experience afforded to you over the last 4 years is unparalleled to anyone who served in good times. Duke Ellington once said, Madam President, a problem is a chance for you to do your best. Madam President, the Prime Minister did the best that we could have asked for. God forbid if we had a Christie Davis team. On a lighter note, Madam President, I am among the 70,000 plus Bahamians that have taken the COVID vaccine. I was admittedly reluctant. As we all know, these people fear what we don't understand. People are also all over the world distrustful of governments. Some people said, those of you in government, you go first and tell us how it goes. Well, I went first for my family and my friends, Madam President. On April 30th, to be exact, I got my first COVID vaccination, and now some 7 weeks later, I don't see what I was so fearful of or reluctant for. I am reluctant, however, to join in any global call, as my learned colleague said a moment ago, to mandate that everyone must get vaccinated. I will, however, fully support more intentional public education on the vaccines and the impact of the pandemic on small island developing states like ours, our businesses, our unemployment rates, our families, and the restriction on our socialization for health and safety reasons, and definitely on our overburdened and overworked health services and professionals. Madam President, I privately and publicly encourage my family, my friends, and those 14,000 plus persons that follow my page to make the right choice and to continue to observe all of the emergency protocols of social distancing and wearing their mask. I am vaccinated. I did so for the safety of my family, friends, and my staff with whom I interact with every day, so that I do not put them in harm's way. I encourage others. I encourage Bahamians. I encourage my friends. I encourage my loved ones to exercise caution, take the vaccine, observe the safety protocols. Madam President, permit me to go on record in saying that I fully support relaxing COVID measures for the fully vaccinated. I have heard the leader of government business say in this place, Madam President, over the last 4 years, that you are damned if you do and damned if you don't. So do. I have come to appreciate and support those sentiments. With that sentiment, Madam President, at the forefront of our minds right now, let me remind us, the 16 senators of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, as said by the Attorney General this morning, the right to pass on citizenship has not been settled. And I publicly state that I fully support the Court of Appeals ruling. I do not believe in such a thing as stepchildren, nor do I accept that a child born to Bahamian is not automatically Bahamian. We are yet to amend the Magistrates Court Act to increase the civil claims ceiling, Madam President, from the $5,000 to the $15,000 or $20,000. We all know fully well the high cost for the poor man to get justice in the Supreme Court in this country. It is costly and it is time-consuming. We know full well the exorbitant cost and length of time it takes, Madam President. Thirdly, we are yet to lift the moratorium on public service plates. we know full well that poor and hard-working Bahamians have to lease government taxi, tour car, livery, and jitney plates from the rich and connected in New Providence. You see, Madam President, in my community, there are countless households with couples that come from families that are split on their support of either the PLP or the F&M. So imagine in my community right next door to me, there's a husband in the house next to me who supports the F&M, and his wife supports the PLP. They come from two different families where one was a strong F&M and the other is a strong PLP. The father supports the F&M and supported the F&M in 2017, but for the life of me feels as if his needs and concerns weren't addressed during this term. I say to the F&M that when F&Ms feel that the F&M has not addressed their concerns while the F&M is in power, they don't vote F&M. I say to the PLP that when the PLP supporters are disgusted and fed up with the disrespectful and arrogant PLP leadership, they don't vote PLP. Madam President, earlier I alluded to my recommendation for the Family Island Development. And I note the Family Island Development Encouragement Bill seeks to extend the exemption periods, etc., for 5 years to 2026, which is sheer genius. But I would like to recommend again that the administration move with haste over this summer period to grant Bahamians, or lease to Bahamians, an acre of land for the construction of Airbnbs, hydroponic and aquaponic farms, the construction of packaging facilities, the construction of assembly plants, the construction of call centers, and the construction of theme parks and other cultural or entertainment venues. Madam President, the government would accelerate the Family Islands recovery, empower countless Bahamians to become entrepreneurs, create an economy on Family Islands that have little to no development and commerce going on at this moment, stimulated job creation, diversified the tourism product, and caused an increase in airlift and shipping to and from the Family Islands. In my estimation, Madam President, it will be a win-win for the ministries of finance, tourism, agriculture, and most definitely for the people in our Family Islands. I will go on record, Madam President, as publicly calling for the grant of permanent residency based on one's contribution to the Family Islands development, as I've said before. And to my mind, I'm thinking, we have persons who want to become permanent residents in the Bahamas. The government can take the policy that if you were to invest in the construction of a school or a health facility, sporting complex, marina, or hurricane shelter pursuant to the Ministry of Works guidelines, codes, plans, that we would grant that permanent residency based on that advancement for our people. This would significantly develop our Family Islands at no cost to central government, Madam President. My recommendation is not for scattered development. Rather, it is to designate specific areas of an island, having the surveyor cut it up into districts with a town center with local government offices and the various emergency services and facilities like shelters and clinics nearby. Madam President, I'm always humbled by and grateful to God for his blessings. I remain humbled by and grateful to the Prime Minister for this opportunity to serve over the last 4 years. And I would actually like to acknowledge and publicly say thank you for the various opportunities. In 2017, I was appointed as a consultative senator despite not having any parliamentary or political experience. And I think in the last 4 years, I have learned fairly well procedures. In 2018, Madam President, thanks to that appointment, I was also appointed as chairman of the Advisory Committee Cabinet on Local Government Reform, an opportunity that reinforced for me the need for us to define the roles of parliamentarians and residents in the development of our communities. In 2019, I was permitted by the Cabinet and Speaker to accept a nomination to be elected Vice President of the Caribbean Parliamentary Network for a 2-year term that ended in March of this year. Thanks to the clerk here in Parliament, Mr. Forbes, and the Minister for Foreign Affairs, I was able to accept the nomination re-election for a second term as Vice President for the Caribbean Parliament. None of these opportunities, Madam President, to serve in these various capacities would have been possible had it not been for the Prime Minister. And again, I say publicly, thank you for the opportunity. On another note, Madam President, as I close, I remind the persons trapped under that PLP bubble tent that there are Bahamians attending BTVI and UB free with rental allowance of up to $500 if they're coming from the Family Islands. I asked the PLP leadership why they have not given you the details. There are Bahamians that can finally afford a piece of land to build their homes, and they can import or purchase their building supplies and furnishings duty-free. For those under that PLP bubble tent, ask the PLP leadership why they have not given you the details. There are civil society organizations that are now being consulted by government and able to co-create and collaborate with the government for the betterment of our people and causes. There are Bahamians who are benefiting from the home porting and family island cruise line initiative, but yet the PLP supporters underneath that bubble tent need to ask the PLP leadership why they're not sharing the good news and opportunities for them. It just simply cannot be doom and gloom every time we hear from the PLP leadership, Madam President. If there's one thing those that support the PLP need, is hope and inspiration. And it's unfortunate that we don't hear that when we hear the PLP leadership speak. Instead, we see the blatant disrespect and the arrogance displayed. There are thousands of Bahamians, Madam President, who have benefited from the small business development centers, training, grants, and loans. But again, for those under the PLP bubble tent, you will have to ask the PLP leadership why they have not given you the details. Madam President, there are thousands of Bahamians who are glad that the Prime Minister during this term was Hubert Minnis and not Christie or Davis. I am one of them. Madam President, I support the budget. I support Prime Minister Minnis' efforts and policies to make the wealth more common. May God bless the people of the Bahamas and free the people under that PLP bubble tent. Madam President, thank you.
The chair recognizes Senator Dwight Sawyer.
I was in Freeport not too long ago. And they gave me all the trappings of a former minister. Good afternoon. No, it's not good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Madam President and fellow senators. It is again a great honor of mine to stand in this place to bring remarks on the 2021/22 budget. However, before I begin my contribution, please allow me the opportunity to wish all the fathers in this Bahamas land a belated happy Father's Day. And I trust that all the fathers spend a wonderful time with their family during that particular time. I myself had a wonderful day with my family that day. I didn't have no crabs, all right? Like I said, I don't like crabs that much, all right? I had fish and other things. I also like to take this time to convey. I also take this time to convey condolences to the family of the late, Leona, Rosie, and Jane Fernanda Samoda, who was a pioneer in early childhood education in our country and an advocate of nationhood. Many of you could recall Aunt Jane. I like to call Aunt Jane or Rosie. All right, I didn't know her name was Leona until I saw it recently. I only knew her as Aunt Jane or Rosie, and she lived in the Chippenham area. But Aunt Jane was almost, sometimes whenever she was in town, she always come down by see her in the House of Assembly at almost every session. And if one didn't know, you would think that she was a member of Parliament at the House of Assembly because she's always there whenever she's in town. But more importantly, she was a strong and ardent supporter of our great party, the Free National Movement. And over the years, we have rented our place in Chippenham, our side quarters. I think it started even before 1992. But so on behalf of myself, and my family and the Free National Movement, I give my sincere condolences to the family. I called his son Paul the other day, and he indicated to me that the funeral will be sometime in July. She's going to be, the service will be at Bethel Baptist Church, and they're going to take our body to Archid Bay. I think they have an excursion going up, or they're allowing for people to go up during that particular weekend. And so anyone who wants to make travel arrangement, contact Paul Fernando, and he's at the Guardian. Madam President, also allow me to give some sincere condolences also to the family of the late Cedric Sanders. And I know that our General earlier had given his condolences, but I'd like to read this press release that we had sent to the papers last week on behalf of the Free National Movement with expressing our condolences to Cedric Saunders. And I read, the Free National Movement offers condolences to the family of meritorious council member Cedric Saunders, who passed away last week. This is the loss of a true Bahamian who epitomized all the attributes involved in exemplary citizenship, honesty, integrity, industriousness, philanthropy, compassion, humility, selfishness, loyalty, and the highest sense of morality. A wonderful, involved Bahamian has gone to rest. We shall surely miss this outstanding man who loved and cared deeply for his country and people. His presence and commitment to his fellow men was sincere. His absence leaves a vacuum that will be difficult to fill. His dedication, commitment to the support of our party was immeasurable. It is often said that no one is irreplaceable, but if there are exceptions to the rule for the FNM, Cedric Saunders is one such exception. I served with Cedric, and just let me say one other thing. I served with Cedric on a committee in the FNM ever since I became chairman back in 1997. And and he was one individual I could always go into his office and sit down and talk because he loved this country and he knew exactly what was going on. But in addition to that, Cedric also served on the Hotel Corporation, Bahamas here, board, and he also was a member of the BTC Privatization Committee at that time. So on behalf of everyone in the Free National Movement, my sincerest condolences to his wife and to his family. May God bless his soul and may he rest in peace and rise in glory. Madam President, I'm not going to be too long in my presentation, and I'm not going to go into many details that the others have gone into, but I'm going to speak in general terms about what this Free National Movement has done so that they deserve a second term, and I know that we can get a second term after all the things that we've done, and you've been hearing them so far up to now. Over the past 18 months, our country has been challenged as never before. Two major, unforeseen events in the likes of Hurricane Dorian and a global pandemic. We have been through a lot, and these times are most unprecedented. We have been fortunate to have a leader such as Dr. the Most Honorable Hubert Minnis. He's a doctor, a man of compassion, a man who cares about the safety of his people, guiding us through these much turbulent times. And yes, Madam President, during these times, our knees may have buckled, but yet we still stand. Only because we are Dr. Minister at hand. Madam President, our Prime Minister has seen and has had to deal with in a short time to date what no other Prime Minister of this nation has had to deal with. There is no blueprint, no guide to follow, just a job to be done. Some things had to be adjusted along the way in order to adapt to the needs of individual communities. As I repeat, as I said before, yes, sometimes our knees may buckle, but still we stand. Our country has been praised by persons and media houses from all over the world on the way we've handled this pandemic. Some decisions made by the Prime Minister were not always popular, but they were made to ensure the safety of our citizens and to minimize the loss of life due to this epidemic. And for that, he deserves all the praise that is given. A good leader always puts the well-being of his country as a priority. During this pandemic, let me say it. I can say this twice. During this pandemic, not one civil servant was terminated. And I repeat, not one was terminated. And they like to call our Prime Minister, they say sometimes he's a dictator, and he likes to doesn't listen to people. But that's a bunch of nonsense. If he had those type of tendencies, I wonder why those people say that they stay here. They should go into countries where there's a dictator and go back and visit them and see how long they last over there. Okay? They don't know what a dictatorship is. All right? This man, our Prime Minister, knows what it is to take care of the safety of our country, the safety of our people, and to do what is right to make sure each and every Bahamian get what is just to them. All right? And those civil servants, my pension, don't worry about my pension, okay? I'm going to be here the second time. And the qualified pension, the qualified, I don't care, to qualify for a pension, the qualified pension, you got to be here a second time. I get my second time. On this side. Oh, I know. Well, the list has already been finished, else I would have been on the other side. And even though many were not physically in the office, they remain employed, the civil servants. This is the current government did that. We also spend millions of dollars providing food and rental assistance, as well as unemployment benefits. Yes, we might have had some hiccups along the way, and our knees sometimes may have buckled, but yet we still stand. Despite the unpopularity of the lockdowns, they were necessary for the containment of the spread of this dangerous virus. Globally, countries were locking down and curfews, much stricter than those imposed by our government, were implemented. And I must say, some still remain in some countries today. Like our government, countries around the world realized that this measure was necessary in this battle. It is a known fact that our government moved quickly when we recorded our first case. Those people on the other side were saying we moved too quickly. We all know the saying, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Our health workers hit the ground working and even went beyond the call of duty in many instances to ensure our safety. We lost loved ones along the way, but we persevered and are here today because of the protocols put in place by this minister-led government who listened, not to himself, but listened to the experts in this matter. He listened to his experts, he listened to his cabinet ministers, and he consulted with others, okay, to make sure that the right decision was made. So that was not a one-man decision. I just want to repeat, that was not a one-man decision. Yes, our quick actions have enabled us to combat this third wave that now ravages many others, including countries in our region. We are doing everything to protect the well-being of our people, maintain economic stability, and accelerate this recovery. This government is working for the people. Yes, we had some hiccups along the way, and our knees may have buckled, but still we stand. Our numbers are trending in the right direction, and there's ease of some curfews and restrictions as we forge forward to fully opening our country. This minister-led government has spent over $25 million to help healthcare workers attain the necessary safety equipment. He spent over $118 million in funding unemployment, while another $32 million was spent in providing food for persons affected by the pandemic. Over $44 million was spent to aid them in business to meet their payroll, because some businesses had trouble meeting their payroll. So the government funded them to the tune of $44 million, thus saving plenty of jobs, so that families could go home at the end of the week, could buy food and bread and put on the table, they pay their rent, or whatever bills they have to pay. Another $53 million was granted to medium-sized businesses to help them survive during this pandemic. This caring government provided devices to all children in need of one, so that virtual learning was possible for all students during the lockdown and the closure of schools. No child was left behind, and education continued on their new normal. Yet those people on the other side say that there is no plan, and there was no plan, and there never was a plan. No one ever imagined such a catastrophe like Dorian or this global pandemic. So the plans and goals of this government got a bit sidetracked, and some changes had to be made. But nevertheless, this minister-led administration continued to keep the well-being of its citizens in the forefront. Everything was not always popular, but it was necessary, and we had to do the right thing. Some of those persons on the other side have continued to ridicule the government and have even gone as far as spreading negativity about the initiatives and the incentives. These unfounded and unnecessary messages are harmful to all and does not help us. Yes, Madam President, our knees may have buckled, but yet still we stand. We stand as the caring government, a government for the people at all times. This country is opening up. And tourists are once again gracing our shores. Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines has initiated sailing from Nassau as their own port. This has sparked a tremendous increase in air travel to our shores. Increase in hotel overnight stays, increase in sales to vendors and other guest-related sales. This country is opening up, jobs are being created, and jobs are being saved. Young people are becoming entrepreneurs in business that one would not have imagined had we not been in a new norm. So this country is moving forward. We've been fortunate to have received vaccines in the early stages and have been able to administer the vaccines to our citizens. While it is not mandatory, it is necessary for us to obtain herd immunity to move forward. There's been so many conspiracy theories pushed out by Joe Blow public globally that it somewhat stagnates the efforts of the government to vaccinate at least 60% of the population. This vaccine is free. It will allow freedom of movement. It will allow us to get back to some normalcy. And it was encouraging to see the leaders of the opposition take their vaccine. And it would be even better. And I was glad that the senator from, I would almost say from Grandmama, from Tall Pines, who wants to get him from Tall Pines now, made those encouraging remarks to ensure that his people become vaccinated. And even though it's not compulsory or mandatory, we should also encourage everyone. But I want him to see how you get one of his candidates who's now running on the ticket to encourage him to go and get vaccinated, because it's out there spreading negativity about this vaccine. All right, and he wants to be Attorney General at one time. All right, so I think you should try to get on this. Because all candidates should be vaccinated. All candidates should be vaccinated. Okay, all right. All the next one. Okay. This vaccine. Okay, so please, all right. And I tired of listening to him. Okay. This F&M government has made the vaccine available throughout the country, and many have received first doses, while even more are now fully vaccinated. I can proudly say that I am fully vaccinated, and I feel a sense of comfort knowing that I am. And I think, and everybody in this room, I think, is vaccinated. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I assume that everybody is vaccinated. And on the same case, okay. And the ease of domestic travel is a good feeling, and we should all take this as an opportunity to build the economy of our family islands. As a matter of fact, it seems that this vaccination may soon be a requirement for international travel. And so I encourage everyone to take the vaccine. We must get back to normal. Many countries have obtained herd immunity, and many more are almost there. Madam President, this 2021-2000 budget is designed with the future of the people in mind. Let me just highlight some of the few things that we have done since coming to office in 2017. Number one, and I'm only going to list a few of them, okay? Shortly after taking office, we accomplished our promise of putting an end to the fires at the city dump, which is now called the New Providence Ecological Park. And this is the same area, this park is in the same area that the member opposite me is now running. And I'm surprised. No, please, don't go there. Okay? No, please. And I'm surprised that in his contribution, he didn't even commend us on the relief we brought to the residents of Tall Pines area and the neighboring community. And Senator Dowell, you should give us thanks for that. You want to run in Tall Pines and you want to give the government the praise and recognition for getting rid of the fires at the city dump. Right. No, I don't want you to respond. No, I'm on the floor now. That area, okay, and that area is now it's thriving green space, and the residents of the surrounding areas are happily breathing clean, fresh air again. And I hope that they continue to breathe clean, fresh air when they go to the polls next year and vote F&M. That's what F&M does. Yeah. Another one is introduction of tax-free zones in the overall development initiative. The availability of clean potable water in several of the neglected family islands, specifically Cat Island. That's where your leader neglected to do water for them. The digitization and ease of application for passports. The ability of obtaining a passport on Family Island rather than incurring the expense of travel to Nassau. That's a great achievement. And Minister, I'd like to thank our government for that. The upgrade of our LKIS system in several of the family islands. The improvement and building of bridges on several family islands. And Madam President, this is something I want to highlight. The upgrade of the engines and the facility of BPL to eliminate the overloading resulting in previous load shedding. And as the Minister of Works mentioned in the other house the other day, he guarantees that there be no the problem dealing with load shedding has been rectified. From time to time we may have power cuts, but those power cuts would not be due to load shedding. They would probably due to other factors that load shedding has nothing to do. But our generation problem has been resolved. And so we should thank the F&M minister-led government for doing that. And at the same time, Madam President, what I want to emphasize also is that over the last 2 years, especially over the last year, Haven't you all noticed that your electricity bills have been reduced? They've been reduced tremendously, right? And that's only because, I got to remind you about that. And that's only because we put a Bahamian team at BPL, whereas before, PLP put a foreign team in there. Foreign team again, but we had to get rid of that, okay? I know. I know they believe in for it. Anyhow, these are just a few of some of the accomplishments of the minister. Just a few. And you see, Madam President, you see this booklet here? F&M achievements. There's more than 106 achievements that we have listed over the last, that we have accomplished, that we have accomplished over the last 4 years. And there's much more to be done in our next year, okay? So I want each and every one of you to get a copy of this. And we can put, we can get a copy of this, all right? And you'll be astounded by the number of the amount of achievement that we made in just 4 years. Imagine what we would have accomplished if we didn't have those majors, if we didn't have those majors, if we didn't have those major challenges. So, Madam Chair, Madam President, there's so much more on the drawing board, and that's why we need to give this administration a second time. Yes, we have buckled at the knee, yet we still stand. We stand in solidarity with our Prime Minister. We stand as a united team, ready to continue to fight for your future, the future of our country, and the citizens yet unborn. Madam President, Madam President, finally, I must say I support this budget, the 2021 budget, 2022 budget, 100%. May God bless us all, and may God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
I don't know, Mr. Speaker, you and Senator, you want to start now or wait till 3 o'clock? Wait till 3? Okay. Yeah, Madam President, if it's okay, we'll take the luncheon break now. I move that the business of the Senate suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
No, wait till after speak.